So a little while ago, one of my friends and I had an idea to play the game Dustborn just to see how bad it actually was, and it's safe to say it's way worse than I thought it was. I recorded myself playing it in hopes to make a full video on funny moments we had during the game, but the game was so insufferable we couldn't make it past like the second mission. So here's my review of Dustborn, or what I played of it. The game starts out with you in a car in which you're running from the police, which already we have a pretty glaring issue. The car of choice is a car that pretty much is made up of entirely windows on the top half, which if you're trying to get away from law enforcement, who are actively trying to compare every person to your image, why choose a car that is almost entirely transparent? But whatever, let's move on. We meet the characters inside the car. You play as Pax, a woman endowed with the power of words, who also has a wound on her arm, to which from my memory was never explained, but then again I only played like 2 hours. Next you meet Sai, a horizontally challenged individual who has Oh my god. Next you meet Sai, a horizontally challenged individual who has the power to turn her body to stone when she experiences strong emotions, namely anxiety. She's alright at first, but over time her skittish and constantly scared personality gets really annoying really quickly. Next is Gnome, a previous ex to Pax and has the power to falsely present information to a victim to make them doubt their own memory and perception. I'm pretty sure there's a term for that already, but I can't place my finger on it. Lastly is Theo, who has no powers whatsoever. He's just the boss character of the group, trying to get this group of people where they need to go, and that's about it. Honestly, out of the 4 people we meet in the car, he's the only likable person. He isn't obnoxious and annoying like Sai, doesn't have any awful personality traits like Gnome, and isn't overbearing and demanding like Pax is. Out of the 2 hours we played, he was the only character that came anywhere close to likable. After you meet everybody in the car, the police then get on your tail, trying to pull you over. I wonder how they found out you were in the car. Anyway, they get behind you and you have 2 choices to make. Either block, which makes you stop the car, or push, which makes Sai step on it and speed off. Not a horrible way of introducing the choices affect the outcome thing, but that's about all this game gets right. We chose to stop the car, and that prompted the officer to approach us and ask for us to step outside the vehicle. You're then prompted with more options, including push, block, and trigger. So obviously you know which one I had to pick. Trigger, yes.
Loser.
And since this is an incredibly accurate depiction of American law enforcement, made by not an American game studio, but a Norwegian one, so they totally know how America operates, he draws his gun and backs up from the car into another lane of traffic. And you can guess what happens from there.
Not word. I'm not warning you again. Get
Sir,
out.
please don't walk into road.
Now let's stop for a moment. It was already established in this game that traffic drives on the right side of the road. So when the truck came and hit the officer, it came from behind the car, going the wrong way. Another nitpick, but it shows they don't even care to pay attention to the tiniest of details that they have already established. Another thing I notice constantly throughout the game is its conversational timing. It seems so incredibly off in this game. If you notice, Sai says,
Sir,
Out.
please don't walk into
and then stops for like 3 seconds before the officer gets hit. And this isn't a one-time thing either. This is a repeated thing that happens a lot throughout this game. Timing is either too early or too late for interruptions. Not saying game design is easy, it 100% is not, and I have friends who do it and I know the process can be painstaking. But it seems like such a simple thing. I don't understand how this could be an oversight. Anyway, we speed off and continue down the road with some more useless dialogue. We arrive at Gnome's apartment and are finally able to engage in actual gameplay. But after I finally get control of the character, I notice something. The game feels bad to play, physically.
Oh god, this game controls like garbage.
The game feels actively sluggish and slow, the camera pans really slowly, and the character walking doesn't quite turn fast enough, making it ultimately worse. The gameplay this early on is just walking around, looking at different things and interacting with them, a bed, a tea kettle, a piano, such riveting gameplay. At one point, you get to eat some pineapple, and she eats it in the most objectively incorrect way. I never thought there was a wrong way to eat pineapple, but I guess there is. Not to mention, her mouth is just nowhere near the pineapple, So does she even really eat it in the first place? We continue looking around the apartment at all the amazing art pieces, including an onomatopoeia of a Batman comic and a banana. You sit down and join the conversation with Sai and Gnome and talk about whatever. Another constant issue I have with this game is its persistence on fighting the player for control of the camera during cutscenes. There's supposed to be these cinematic semi-gameplay sections, but they lack what most cutscenes in true story games have: cinematography. Let's take this conversation from God of War Ragnarok, for example. Kratos, Atreus, Mimir, Freya, Freyr, Brock, Sindri, and Tyr are all arranged around this table, discussing Gjallarhorn and Atreus returning to Asgard shortly after Kratos kills Heimdall. There are close-ups of characters to show intense emotion, and wide shots to show everyone at the table, emphasizing the importance that this means to everyone and not just Kratos. Not to mention, this whole scene is shot with one continuous camera movement. No cuts. Additionally, the characters move around and act like humans, instead of some robotic characters on a screen, which helps people get lost in the scene and brings out people's emotions about the characters and what it means for Atreus to leave back to Asgard, because they feel so alive. But at the end of the day, it's just a conversation between a few people. Now we turn back to Dustborn, where a similar thing takes place, where a few characters are discussing an important aspect of the story. However, the game's developers didn't make the characters go about it in any form of a cinematic sense for what's supposed to be a story-based game. The three of them sit on a couch, occasionally move, and then talk about what's happening in the most simplistic and basic sense. The camera constantly fights the player, trying to move it into a random spot on the screen, which I would understand if it actually helped the scene play out, but it doesn't. It just sits there and doesn't move. But then the player has control of it? So why does it fight the player when you move the camera in the first place? If you don't want the camera to move, don't let the player move it. This is such a consistent issue, one that I'll touch on a little later. But to continue, Sai rudely tells off Theo for doing nothing but asking if they finished their discussion.
British flag with
Yeah,
the stripes.
yeah, I
Did you
forgot.
finish your discussion?
Not yet, Theo! Jeez, man, hold your fucking horses.
And again, it feels like the interruption is off. She interrupts him just before he finishes his statement, but Theo continues talking anyway, making it seem like she was supposed to just say that after he finished talking. They finish their discussion and drive over to a warehouse where this lady, Luna, is trapped underneath a van and needs our help to get her out of it. We try to pull her out, but her arm is caught. So we have Gnome calm her down, which is where we witness Gnome's powers at their fullest.
She's freaking out! What do we do?
Gnome, keep her calm.
Working on it. Hey,
Hey, robot, let's do this.
No.
do it.
Let's go.
You can breathe. Just listen to
Oh,
me.
I'm supposed to mash the button.
Oh my god, she's gaslighting her into breathing.
We need to raise this bus higher.
That is so funny.
Ow.
She's gaslighting her into breathing.
Wait, really?
Yeah, you can hear her? Open the dialogue.
Sai,
What?
You
I
can
swear,
breathe.
yeah,
Just
you can breathe. Like, that is so stupid.
We get Sai to hold up the bus as we go look for an antenna, and we find one.
got it.
kick.
It's your lucky day, Rust Bucket.
Oh, this
That's a
game is...
vibrator. That is a
Did you
vibrator.
break the antenna?
Oh.
That is a vibrator.
We pull Luna out after getting the electronic jack to lift the bus up again and save the day. We talk to Luna for a bit where again, the interruption seems just a bit off, trying to cut off other characters, but it just doesn't work.
The officer walked into the road.
A Pacific Authority officer was killed.
Accidentally squashed by a robot.
Killed after waving down your car. They
The
were looking
dialogue
for you before
timing
they
is so
definitely are
bad.
now.
We go to the bathroom and vomit, because yes, and go to some strange vision of a tree with the sign of Lebanon, the geographic center of the US. We get back from whatever that was and flush the toilet we definitely just puked into.
Ah, yes, I definitely
right
puked
out.
in that toilet. I
No,
have
you
so
see-
much to flush down the toilet.
You don't understand. You don't understand.
Wash up in the sink, and then leave, letting Sai use the toilet after us. Another kind of one-off thing I found funny, you find a package of peanuts on a table, which is fine, until you look at the back of the packaging.
Nuts!
A clever nut. Look at the nutrition fact.
Nutrition facts.
One sugar.
Has 7 grams of protein. Serving size per container, 57.
How much is... It didn't say amounts
Dude,
per serving.
how many freaking things are in here? If there's
Each
170 calories per serving, what is 170 times 57?
Hold on. I got this. If I remember how the button to get there. 9,690.
There's 9,000 calories in peanuts in this freaking bag.
It's Paprika.
Oh, that explains all.
As we continue, Luna helps heal our arm, and right here is an example of the interactive cutscene thing they do. You're supposed to look around and question the things around you to make conversation with the characters, but you're basically just making small talk, questioning things that ultimately just don't matter, and it wastes the player's time. On top of this, if you haven't noticed already, this game lacks any form of transitions from cutscenes to gameplay. Every single time it transitions away from a cutscene, it fades to black like some rookie editor in Premiere Pro. The over-reliance of the fade to black to transition cutscenes really hurts the game in a cinematic sense. Forcing the player from cutscene to gameplay with no form of transition makes everything feel rushed and sloppy. The alarm starts blaring throughout the underground weed factory. We let the robo-doctor finish healing the wound on her arm that still was not explained whatsoever. We talk to Theo about what is going on, and we find out that there are officers in the warehouse searching for us. He informs us to tell the others. We check on Sai in the bathroom. We offer her some jerky. She gets offended and closes the door. We go back and check on her again, and it offers us those 3 options again. We pick Trigger. She gets upset and closes the door. We call out to Theo for help, and
Theo, we need your help.
Coming.
Oh, hi.
What's going
God,
on?
this game is
Sai's
so
not
buggy.
responding.
we get the door open and talk to Sai. And yet again, here's another example of the conversational timing being off. Pax asks Sai if she's okay, and Sai takes like 4 seconds to respond to her.
You okay?
No,
Are you okay?
I'm staying. This is home now.
Bro. I would understand if Sai like breathed heavily or something, put some form of auditory filler here to make it less awkward, but she doesn't. It's just complete silence. This makes what's supposed to be a stressful, intense situation in which you're trying to help one of your team members with how they're feeling really awkward because it comes off as weird and robotic. We call Gnome to go calm down Sai, in which she does some of the most obvious gaslighting I've ever heard.
Sai, you're overreacting, darling. You're actually doing fine.
Wow. Oh my god.
We choose a new shirt. I pick the unicorn one. We then help move the supplies onto the new Cougar Cruiser bus, your new home of sorts. Gnome and Sai begin to practice playing their instruments. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, they're in a band. Anyway, Sai pulls out the biggest abomination to music I've ever seen, which looks like an attempt at a modern art piece involving some form of a guitar. We open the door to the bus and see a Pathfinder from Apex knockoff,
This survey beacon reminds me of my ex-girlfriend. Except the survey beacon is still here.
who we are so upset at for some reason, because this robot, who has been nothing but nice to us so far, is so utterly offensive. Joking aside, this is one of the few things that was actually explained a little later in the game, so it's not all bad. You push the robot using your words, to which you learn that robots and technology aren't affected by your words. Gnome calms us down with the worst interruptive timing, yet again making its cameo appearance.
We just can't.
This
Don't worry
isn't.
about it. There's no problem
No.
No,
here. Hey,
He's gaslighting us.
right.
I won't.
you're not.
It's not a problem. Like I said.
Ah.
There's no pro-
Gaslighting.
We cave and let Great Value Pathfinder come with us on the bus. We argue with Luna, and again, we try to interrupt her, but then both people just start talking at the same time.
Latest intel says the 80 is cleared to the east, all the way to the Republic border.
I don't like that.
Sorry I have to send you on your way.
Why do we have to
But
take
we
this
have a
person
whole
along? They're just
network to
manipulative.
protect.
It's the whole point.
This is not
Argue.
just about you.
I don't like this.
Yeah,
It's the
keeping
lives
Our
mad.
lives
and
are on
keeping
the
the
line.
weave up.
It genuinely makes no sense to me how this is such a repeated issue. You'd think for a game that was funded by the Norwegian government, they would actually playtest the game they're trying to release and try and find and fix all the problems present, but no. That's asking for too much, I guess. We board the bus and begin driving, trying to reach Nevada. We then argue with Theo about something I didn't really pay attention to, and then we get everyone's attention, informing them that we actually aren't going to Nevada, but instead we're going to Liberty, Oregon to visit our sister Ziggy. The problem of the camera fighting the player comes up again here. If you notice a few times throughout the background footage, you'll see the camera snap to a certain position in the cutscene. Well, if you press in the right stick, it will snap to a certain spot in the frame. If you then leave it alone, the camera moves on its own, like it's puppeteered by a blind person, moving it wherever it wants.
No, that's
So what's the
not
plan
same,
this time? We're
Sai.
going up
This
to
is my last
Liberty,
chance to say goodbye
then
to
across to Novus.
We're just picking up my sister, and then we'll continue the journey.
Does your
We
hat?
transport the
is there a
cargo
sweat stain
across
in the
the
back of that?
Republic to Nova
Is there
Scotia.
what?
We get our money,
Sweat stain in the
and then
back?
it's up to each of us to decide what's
I don't know.
next.
By the way, this is the default
Right.
camera position.
Plan on springing
This
any
is
more surprises
recentered.
on
I'm
us?
not touching anything.
No.
That is so funny.
You then play a guitar and sing probably the worst song I've ever heard behind Wagwan Delilah by Snowday and Drake.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Minigame.
Nothing beats Last of Us guitar, though.
Quick question. When have we played the actual game?
I don't know.
We're the aliens.
What?
Where did that come
I know,
from?
this makes no sense.
It goes between you learning a section and Pax playing it proudly, but A, the volume of the guitar and the vocals shifts so hard during playing in the cutscene portion, and B, what she's playing on the guitar and what's being heard don't match up at all. I don't play guitar, but I'm pretty sure that if your fingers aren't moving, sound doesn't just randomly appear out of the guitar.
Cheese.
Now we get to single-handedly the worst part of the game. You experience a flashback to 6 months before the current events, where you're participating in a lab test. You're given probably the most vague instructions known to mankind.
Same procedure as last time. When you see a prompt, push a button.
Okay.
How does this make you
Let's
feel?
do
1,
this.
happy. 2, sad. 3, angry.
And that's it. That's all the information that is given. You are given absolutely zero instruction of what you're supposed to be doing. You're told to press a button when you see a prompt. 3 random symbols appear, ones that appear when you use your word abilities, but they never inform you as to what you're pressing them in relation to. You're just pressing them.
Swirly?
I don't know.
How do you feel?
Are you serious? You predicted it. You literally predicted it. How does this make you feel? That is what he just said.
Gotta be kidding me.
Then you can ask a question to Jacob, the dude behind the window. I ask the logical question, the one we're all thinking, what are we doing? He then responds in the most nonsense garbage answer filled with technical and medical jargon to make it seem like he knows what he's talking about. In reality, what he is talking about, again, means absolutely nothing to the player. Nothing from this cutscene affected literally anything I did later on in the game whatsoever. And I played for like another hour after this. This cutscene gameplay thing feels so useless for this game. It provides no insight into anything that is going on, and it only confuses the player more by giving them unclear and vague instructions on what to do, while having some guy yap to us about nothing from behind a glass window for 5 minutes. They could have used this as a way to provide answers to some of the questions this game immediately throws at you. How Pax got her arm injured, why she has these powers in the first place, what these symbols mean, but they don't. It serves as a useless flashback to segue to a combat tutorial. So then in the end, the whole cutscene is useless anyway, because everything that we just went through in this singular cutscene doesn't relate to anything in the combat section that comes immediately after it. So in the end, it just leaves the player with more questions than answers, asking, what's the point? Why were we put in some weird environment? What do the symbols mean? Who is Jacob? What answers was this test going to provide? And the biggest one of all,
Dude, I have wires strapped to my head. I think this counts as weird science.
Where are the wires in her head?
That's a very good question.
I explained this really well while I was playing.
Okay, this is. Remember when I told you when I was playing the first Descendant, and I told you that that game expects you to know absolutely everything off start. Like you have to know every single thing and how the world works without any form of context.
Yeah.
It's the same thing here. She just said, "I've seen it before in the stillness." Like we know what that is.
What is the still?
This
Like,
is what I mean.
They're telling their story backwards.
Is this the stillness? Is this what she was referencing before? There's no context to anything. They expect the player to know absolutely everything about this game from the start. Anyway, we continue to this strange environment where we get to revisit the tree and the Lebanon sign, where you're finally taught how to actually play the game. I know, it's insane. You're given a bat and told to press square, in my case, to swing at the enemy people things. Then you get surrounded, you go Super Saiyan, and then you wake up. That's it. The whole last 10 minutes of gameplay served absolutely zero purpose whatsoever. You're stopped by Justice, a military police force sworn to protect the American Republic. They then ask us to get off the bus and perform to prove we're a band, I guess. You then get your first opportunity to play as a whole band, and it is something else. They make you press buttons in rhythm to the beat of a song, pretty stereotypical for music game stuff, except some of them are just completely offbeat, especially the lyric section. The circle button in my case was to control the lyric portion of the song, but the button you were told to press was entirely offbeat to almost every part of the song. And then the lyrics themselves, displayed under the button, were either really early or really late. They were rarely on time, it felt like. The lyrics to the song just objectively suck. We're the Dustborn, this bug is airborne, we're the new porn, our kind is newborn. Like, this was actually painful to do, and I was actively wanting this to end while playing it. It sometimes feels like this game can't decide on what it wants to be. Hey guys, look, we're a story game with this gang of misfits who has the power of words. Now all of a sudden we're a really surface level combat game. Now we're a rhythm game where these people are in a band. Like, I wish it would just pick one sometimes. It almost feels like Fortnite in a way. They were a zombie survival game at first, then all of a sudden they're a battle royale, then they have a creative mode, now they have a racing mode, a Lego Minecraft clone, and Guitar Hero. Like, just pick one that you want your primary focus to be and make the rest other games. Last of Us is another game that does this, but it goes about it in the correct way. Last of Us 2 follows almost the same kind of format, having a rhythm section, combat, and story, but it balances it very well. The game has deep story that connects with the player, making you feel the emotion of the characters. It has combat, which isn't very in-depth like God of War, with builds, armor, different perks and enchantments and whatnot. It has Ellie, guns, bricks, bottles, throwables, and traps. Pretty surface level stuff. And lastly, it has very light rhythm elements with the little guitar sections of the game, allowing you to play the guitar and play chords and sing songs and stuff. Dustborn feels like it's trying to do all of the same thing, but fails miserably at all of them. It has story, but it is so surface level, and almost all the characters are so boring and flat that no one really cares what happens to any of them. You don't build a connection with any of the characters because they just aren't good. The combat is so boring and stale. It also controls really poorly. A lot of the time you're turning away from people you're trying to hit, and the animations for using your words mid-fight is just not good, but we'll get to that part a little later. Lastly, the rhythm section. It goes all out on this rhythm section here, making us play a full song like it's Guitar Hero all of a sudden. This game is marketed as a story game. Keep it as a story game, and don't try and change it 15 times throughout the game trying to be every game in the industry. We pick our first mission on the map and travel to Rock Rabbit Campground to spend the night. We gather around a campfire and talk with the rest of the group. But honestly, this section makes the least sense out of any other portion in the game. Everybody is talking about random things, which is fine. I'm not saying that every conversation has to benefit the story, but most of the conversations are just flat out stupid. Theo, despite being a 40-year-old man, doesn't know what a man cave is.
Rustic is your dad's man cave.
I'm telling you, the word's cozy. Cozy is like comfortable socks.
What's a man cave?
Oh, Theo. The things I can teach you.
How are you 40 years old and not know what a man cave is?
Earlier today,
Yeah, were you born in a freaking lab?
Then we begin to eat some sausages. Theo makes a very interesting comment.
The best way to tell if a sausage is
Could be a
done
gay leader.
is to use your mouth.
Is it now?
Sai then asks if the sausages they're eating are halal, and I think Nolan did a good job talking about it here.
Why would you stab it and start cooking it without knowing if
Yeah,
it was
it's like,
cooked or not?
I would imagine as somebody who's, like, I would imagine if
Yeah.
you are a Muslim and you are trying to follow halal, the first thing you do is figure out if the meat is halal first. Instead of skewering it on a pole, cooking it, almost eating it, and then asking.
Theo and Gnome don't know what a s'more is.
Do we have what?
I hate to say it, but I'm with Theo on this one. What's s'mores?
How do you not know?
S'mores are marshmallow and salted cracker-based snacks, usually roasted in and
Salted
consumed
cracker?
around campfires.
The graham
That's
cracker
what he
salted?
said.
Sorry.
Not to mention all of them, especially PAX, are holding their sausages like 8 years above the fire, so by the time they would actually be able to eat them, the New York Giants would actually have a decent starting quarterback. We talk to the robot, I go to talk to Theo, accidentally end up in the rhythm section of the game, and can't figure out how to leave.
This is like Some of the worst music known to man.
How do I go back?
I go to the bus to try and figure out how to sleep, like it told me, but apparently I had to talk to everyone first. To give the game some credit, it did show me I was supposed to do that by showing their faces in the top left. I just assumed it was optional, so that's not really the game's fault. Did we then find a gender-neutral bathroom sign on a porta potty, which, so far in the game, every single bathroom has had a gender-neutral sign on it, but they, like, objectively don't need it because every single bathroom it's labeled on is the only one in the whole building, so there can't be gender-designated bathrooms anyway. Like, is this really necessary at this point?
Toilet.
Okay, you really don't even need to put gender signs.
I know, I was gonna say, what's the point of a gender sign on a porta potty? They're already universal anyways.
We find the game inside the game.
Can I go dumpster diving?
You might find an actual game in there.
Look, I found the game.
Whoa, dude, they had a reference to the game already?
Can't believe
Dude,
that.
what that's the access to the DLC?
That's the DLC right there.
We sit down and talk to Sai, and because I did not care what she had to say, I skipped practically everything except gifting her some of the jerky we found earlier in the weed factory.
Strongman's was my go-to snack during marathon warehouse shifts. I'd have to hide it in my shoes before going in.
That is disgusting. Please stop talking.
Going back to the halal thing again, Nolan brings up a really good point here.
She's drinking a beer, right?
No.
Yeah, next to her.
You.
Pink
to Sai.
unicorns are so me.
Is it?
No
Oh yeah,
doubt.
beer.
I'm curious. Is beer
It's beer.
halal?
The fire's mesmerizing.
No, beer is not halal because it has alcohol.
Yeah, you can't drink alcohol.
Then why is she drinking alcohol?
That's a good question.
So this then raises another question about the halal thing. What is the point of her bringing it up? Why was she questioning if it was halal? That would be like Gnome asking, hey, is this pork kosher? Does this obey Jewish kosher laws? Being told no, and then going, oh, okay, and then eating shrimp. I'm all for religious inclusivity. I personally think religion is a great thing, but if you're going to try and include it in something, at least take the time to respect the religion as a whole, not just use it as filler in a conversation. Anyway, after that, you talk to Gnome and talk about whatever. Then you talk to Theo and they talked about whatever. You board the bus and go to sleep. Then you're awoken by a gang of motorcycle riders outside your van. Finally, some actual gameplay. The leader gives her little speech. You get to hear the really garbage interruptive timing again.
We're here for the bus and for any valuables you may have. Just walk away
No,
and...
I don't think so.
No?
No.
They need to time these better. They really do. These are
They
so
really
bad.
do.
You go up to fight the first person. He hands you a bat out of thin air, by the way. It lands in front of you. You pick it up, and after an hour and a half, you begin the game. Now I get to rant about the horrible combat in this game. You're given a bat like you had earlier and beat up the guy who gave it to you. Immediately, it already feels so unsatisfying. You then have an inner monologue teaching you how to use your words to fight back. You use it and it throws him into a wall. 3 more guys fall down and they fight you. It then teaches you how to use circle to block. Now that I'm actually fighting in the game, I get to experience firsthand how bad the combat is, and it is bad. Like I mentioned earlier, the combat feels so unsatisfying. When you play God of War, it feels satisfying to fight the guys in your way. The axe and the blades makes the combat versatile and fun. This lacks all of that. You get to swing, that's it. No light or heavy attacks, just a swing. The dodging often felt useless because of the constant issue I was facing. I was almost never facing the enemy. It felt like I was turned away from the people I was trying to fight constantly. This could be from user error or just sloppy game development, but it felt like the game was turning me away from the enemies after every swing and dodge. Not to mention the horrific animations this game uses. There is no animation at all for blocking. You just snap to holding the bat horizontal in front of you. You're then taught how to taunt, which is a way to focus your attacks on one enemy rather than a bunch, except the animations for this look awful. She leaps forward in the most I don't know how to animate way I've ever seen. To add on to this, if you leap forward using your taunt, you're stuck in it. You're locked and can't move until the end of the animation, if you even want to call it that. But you can still get hit, leading to moments like these where I have to just tank hits, knowing I can't do anything to stop them. I expected some form of polishing, but that wasn't in the budget, I guess. I would talk about Sai joining you in the fight, but she doesn't do anything aside from talk. After she joined, I noticed no difference in the fight at all, so it really isn't worth talking about for an extended period of time. We move on past the combat encounter and arrive at a children's camp thing that Pax used to go to, where we're supposed to meet Ziggy at. We get to the front gate, try and open it, knock, and nothing works. Out of curiosity, I wandered around the little bit I could explore, seeing if I could find anything interesting. I found this oddly out of place metal plate on the wall. I wonder if this will be important. We get Sai to try and punch the door down, and she only breaks through it a little bit, allowing us to peer through the peephole we just made, which allows you to see the old entrance from when Pax was a kid.
I just remembered. Our secret
Are you
entrance?
serious? The freaking metal
right
plate
over
that I
here.
looked at earlier?
They literally made it the most obvious entrance other than the front door. Anyway, you move the sheet of metal and are greeted by a really tall robot that picks up our chappie from Wish.com and drops him, breaking him. The robot retreats back over the wall, and we send Gnome into the camp through the entrance. Gnome goes through the crawl space and begins to panic. We crawl through and see that Gnome is being held at gunpoint. Gnome tries negotiation and gets shot in their arm, disabling its robotic functions. We use our abilities to push the soldier to the ground. We crawl through and check on Gnome, open the gate, and get this wonderful interaction between Pax, Gnome, and Sai.
What the fuck happened to Gnome's arm?
Also, a long story.
Oh, I have nothing.
It's not a long story. She got shot in the arm. That is the story.
I have to find my mom.
That is the whole story.
Then you wander around the camp looking for your mom. You find Annie at Rose's grave, who I have absolutely zero idea who that is, and you talk to her for a little bit. Now this is where Nolan and I decided to hang it up and stop playing. Once we got to this point where Annie had to sit down, it faded to black again, was our breaking point.
What do you mean you're not going back?
Transition.
Oh, I swear, this game's over-reliance on the fade to black is crazy. It has no transitions whatsoever. It's all just fade to black, unfade to black. And they just appear in different scenes. When you play good story games like Last of Us, Spider-Man, God of War, they all have smooth camera work, and they show everything that happens in a cutscene. They don't show two characters standing, talking, fade to black, and then they're in a different spot talking.
It's so unbelievably low quality. I thought this game was bad because of its themes, but this thing does not seem
It's
to be.
just a genuinely bad made, like it's a poorly made game.
You're not telling us. You expect us to know like every detail about them every time someone mentions them.
It's kind of aggravating because I don't understand.
It's just boring. At first I thought it'd be funny, bad, but no, it's just bad.
Like the game has gotten progressively more and more boring because I'm going on these missions to try and find lore to something I don't understand. I just can't with this.
I'm just kind of bored. I honestly just think we should stop.
Honestly.
In the end, this whole cutscene broke down to point at this, talk about it, point at that, talk about it. It got so boring so quickly, and we had it at that point. Then we finally made the decision to stop playing, and I uninstalled it. So there you have it. After playing it for like 2 hours, all I have to say is nothing but negative. It boasts poor character personality, making every character you meet and talk to insufferable and boring. It lacks attention to detail, constantly making things feel inconsistent and ignored. The camera work on the cutscenes is awful and really subtracts from the game, making each cutscene really aggravating to watch because you're always fighting the camera for where to look. The conversational timing and interruptions are really bad and need drastic improvement. It felt like 90% of the time someone who was trying to cut off another person would be too early or too late, making every conversation just really awkward to listen to. This game over relies on the fade to black as a transition between scenes and gameplay, or at this point, just scene to scene. They couldn't even put in the effort to make two people walk from a grave to a bench 30 feet away. The game provides zero context for a lot of things and barely answers anything, while additionally flooding the player with useless knowledge and simultaneously ignoring those questions that were present from the start of the game. It also tries to be 2 to 3 different types of games and fails at all of them because of how surface level it gets with all of them. And lastly, the game's combat system is really bad and needs a lot of work before it is even remotely close to being decent and smooth. Overall, I came into this game thinking it failed because of its themes and weird political side, but it was much more than that. This game failed because while those things are present, this game is just objectively bad from a game design standpoint. It lacks what a lot of major story games have with cinematography and actual good gameplay. I would not recommend this game to anyone. This game has no target audience, which is another reason I think it failed. There's no one who you can market this game to because the characters are not relatable in any sense of the word. If I had to place this on a scale, rating it 0 to 10, I'd put it at 1, purely because it is a game. It has no redeeming qualities that make it any better. It is a game and I'm giving it credit for that, so 1 out of 10. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This took me a good while to make between recording, scripting, editing, and whatnot. If you guys want, I have a few funny moments videos up right now, what this was supposed to be. Phasmophobia funny moments and some Splitgate moments. They're a bit old, just letting you know. Anyway, if you guys want to see more videos like this, just let me know. Hope y'all have a good day.